Yeah.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello, welcome.
I'm Rebecca, for those who are joining us who don't know us.
And I'm Sam.
So we're very happy that you're joining us today, and we said we'd start at 12:30, so we'll start at 12:30. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today to talk through what Social Traders is seeing in social procurement with the impact of COVID-19. We are recording this and you will be able to download the slides from the webinar as well. To begin, in the spirit of reconciliation, Social Traders acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders past and present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people today and to any who may be joining us here. Personally, I am coming to you today from Meanjin in Brisbane, and I recognise the country north and south of the Brisbane River as the home of both the Turrbal and Jagera nations. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and just urge you to consider the land from which you're participating today. What we're going to cover in the next hour is what Social Traders has seen with the business and government members that we work with and how they have been responding to the market during COVID-19. Generally, we'll talk about what changes we've seen that are occurring in procurement. Importantly, some practical tips for you and your business. And we will have Q&A options, and you can do this via the chat function. We will be leaving time at the end to go through any questions, but if there's anything pertinent, we will address as they come up. So you won't be hearing just from me today. For those who are just joining us now, I'm Rebecca Green, Engagement Manager at Social Traders, and I work with a number of our business and government members, helping them to find the social procurement opportunities. You'll also be hearing from Sam Edmonds, who has been spearheading the social procurement work Social Traders is doing since 2015. And you'll also hear from Olivia Cozzolino, who has been working with social enterprise business skills improvement since 2016. And just a reminder for those that are joining us now, we are recording the webinar and you are able to download the slides. And please use the chat function if you have questions. So just to start with, we'd like to know who's here. So I'm going to publish a poll. And if you can tell us in the poll who you are. Are you a certified social enterprise with Social Traders? Are you in the process of applying for a certification? Are you one of our business or government members or other? Maybe you're exploring membership, you might be an intermediary or someone who's just interested in what we're doing here today. It's always interesting for us to know who's participating. So thanks for adding who you are here. A number of certified social enterprises, which is great to see. A number of intermediaries, which is great as well. And some getting certification. Very good. We like to grow our numbers. Great. Looks like we've got quite a number of certified social enterprises with us, which is really good. It's always good to talk with our community. Okay, so for those, though most of you do know who we are, for those who don't necessarily know who Social Traders are, we are an 11-year-old independent not-for-profit. We've started to support the social enterprise sector, and we do this because we believe that social enterprise is one of the greatest vehicles to address disadvantage in our communities. We've been running a social procurement marketplace since 2015, connecting Australian business and government with certified social enterprises. And last year we worked with PwC to understand what that impact has been in our marketplace. And that's what you're looking at with this slide. So what we saw in the last 2 financial years is that we could track $105 million that had been spent by Australian businesses and government departments with Social Traders certified social enterprises. So that $105 million meant that there were 700 jobs supported for people disengaged from the job market, 220,000 hours of skills training, $8 million in goods and services for communities in need, and $2 million of funds distributed for charitable purposes. And we're growing this market. So this slide indicates where we were at the end of the last financial year. We had 53 business and government members. We now have 74, and we've grown from 290 to 369 certified social enterprises. So we are working to grow this market. We want to really increase the social procurement spend with certified social enterprises. And that's because we believe that social procurement really has the greatest potential to have positive impact in our communities. However, we are in different times at the moment. COVID-19 has had a very significant impact on all businesses. So I'm just going to take the next 15 minutes or so to talk about what impact we've seen with our business and government members. I will talk generally at first and then go into the sectors. So first up, who are our business and government members? If you don't know who they are, I'm just going to share our website. So what you can see here is the range and the diversity of the Australian businesses and government departments that are members with social traders. Some of these have been members with us since 2015, and some have indeed come on board in the last 2 months. I'll pop the link to this website page in the chat before we finish today. And also, if you are a certified social enterprise, you can see who the members are in the social procurement portal. What you can see from the members, this is just a snapshot of the sectors that they're in. It is pretty diverse, but there is a distinct concentration of members in infrastructure and construction, as well as the Victorian state government. And this is largely due to the development and rollout of a strong social procurement framework that the Victorian state government launched in 2018. And however, there is representation across Australia. Strongest to date has been emerging in the eastern states and most recently in South Australia. What we've seen across the board since COVID-19 came upon us is that relationships are critical. The relationships that you have with your sales, with your clients, with your supply chain, everybody's experiencing COVID. Many of our members have spent the first couple of months in transition, including everybody understanding how to work from home, examining their supply chain security, which Sam will talk about in a little bit, and generally inward facing. But what we do know is that they are still interested in buying, but they really want to know what they can get right now, what in terms of quantity, quality, and schedule. It's also important to note that this is evolving every week. Even the last couple of weeks at Social Traders, we've seen an uptake in queries and requests from our members, which is great news for us. However, we wanted to talk about the bad news first. There's no point pretending it's all a rosy picture. Most of Social Traders members outside of government and construction have experienced or anticipate revenue decline over the next 6 months. The inbound membership leads for social traders have been down around 50%, and searches on the social procurement portal have declined around 10% since late 2019. However, it's not all bad news. None of our members have indicated a lower commitment to social procurement at this time, and many of them are citing the importance of value. If they're spending dollars that can achieve social and environmental impacts as well as whatever they need to purchase, that's really important. And though we've had a decline in membership leads, we are still bringing on board new members. This includes a multi-department membership with Queensland Government. Most of our members are anticipating a higher or unchanged spend with certified social enterprises over the next year. And all of our members have renewed their membership with Social Traders. So our business membership are annual, we have different levels, and everybody has been coming on board again, which is good news. In terms of engagement with Social Traders, we've seen only about 30% having less engagement over the last few months, and 30% have actually had a higher engagement with us in the COVID market. As I mentioned previously, there's been a noticeable uptake in the last couple of weeks. It's also really clear that we're working with champions of social procurement in these organisations. They understand the important role that social enterprises play in supporting vulnerable people in our communities, and there's a genuine concern on the impact of how COVID-19 is having on social enterprises. So now I'll just go into the different sectors that we're working with. Look, it's not news to anybody that the tertiary education sector has been severely impacted, down in revenue and down in jobs. A key focus for many of them have been in finding what the new business as usual is, looking for efficiencies in their systems and generally spending less. However, where they are spending, that value is critical. Each organisation is different. Some align with environmental sustainability, some with the Sustainable Development Goals. So any purchasing that they're doing that can align with those values is really important. Most of our members in the tertiary sector have worked with social traders for multiple years, and they're indicating that social procurement is still important to them. So to maintenance and property, there's been mixed effects during the lockdown, and it really does depend on the client sector. The hardest hit have been in retail, hospitality, and the public venues. However, we've also seen continued demand in construction, in fast-moving consumer goods, and in roads maintenance. There's also been some increase in services for office and commercial spaces, as everybody's working out what that looks like in the future. With banking, finance, insurance, and technology, in terms of procurement, they seem to be less affected. And some are seeing this as a time to demonstrate their commitment to their communities, and generally looking for ways they can assist, not just purchasing from social enterprises, but can they start doing more skilled volunteering with social enterprises that are in their supply chains to help build capability. With government, in all conversations that Social Traders is having up the Eastern Seaboard, social procurement is still important, and they recognise that social enterprises with their business models delivering impact and trade are well placed to play a critical role in the recovery. In Victoria, as currently the only state with a social procurement framework, the government departments are implementing their social procurement strategies, and the governments have introduced fast payment terms to support suppliers. Infrastructure is going to play a really big role in recovery. We've listed a few of the major packages that have been announced here, and in a few moments I'll pop in the chat a link to some of the State Department announcements for you to follow up on. It's anticipated that we'll see different scales of build through these projects, likely use a bit smaller and more of them rather than the massive contracts. And this likely means that there'll be different and multiple head contractors and potentially more opportunities for social procurement. In construction, we have seen projects that have had to adapt to manage the COVID-19 risks, and this generally means that progress has slowed. Like most businesses, they've been looking internally, trying to find a new way to work and sourcing critical supplies. And again, Sam will talk more on this shortly. We haven't seen any changes in social procurement requirements, and we're working with many of our members who are responding to bids now with social procurement components. And so per those government projects, we expect to see more of them with the stimulus spends being announced and with a greater variety in projects and project size. There's also a note that traditionally, well, since 2015, Social Traders has worked with the really big contractors in construction. So John Holland, CPB Contractors, Lane O'Rourke and more. And in the last year and in the last couple of months, we've actually seen some of the smaller construction companies coming on board looking for assistance to do social procurement. And that means that the smaller companies generally does help to have more opportunities for small social enterprises to be involved. So again, you can see who all our members are on our website. And if you are a certified social enterprise, you can see a bit more information on them in the social procurement portal. But if there's no immediate questions, I'd like to now hand over to Sam, who will talk about what we've seen in changes in social procurement.
Thanks, Beck. It looks like there's no burning questions right now, so that's great. We can come to questions later on. Thanks so much, Beck, for giving that overview. So I'm really going to, I guess, take on from where Rebecca has left off in terms of outlining what our members are experiencing. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we're hearing and seeing more broadly in procurement. And when I say procurement, I mean really it's anyone that's buying goods and services that's in a large organisation. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific procurement department, but some of the things that they are experiencing. So like all of us, these people and organisations, large organisations, have had a bit of a shock. And they've found that this crisis has exposed some risks in their supply chain that they didn't realise they had, and that they hadn't foreseen and therefore hadn't managed. they're also finding that there's areas of new spend that they are going to have to make, which they hadn't planned for, but that then creates different opportunities. So there's a range of risks and there's a range of opportunities that are really coming through from the procurement sector more broadly. So we've all been exposed to, what panic buying has looked like on a consumer scale. So you just have to look at things like toilet paper and rice and pasta and home gym equipment, all of that sort of thing. So that's also been experienced at a corporate level. And no doubt some of you have also experienced shortages in various things. So hand sanitizer would be one of those things that every business has to have in place now that has been under a lot of pressure. We've seen, the global shortages of PPE generally, so that's personal protective equipment, and I'm talking broadly, including some of those cleaning kinds of supplies. There's no secret that those things have been in short supply, and there's been a significant amount of panic buying probably a month or so ago. We ran a discussion with all of our buyer members in April, and we asked them what are they looking for right now, and this was really all they were talking about was cleaning and PPE. So I think that really just indicates that they and highlighted to them that they were highly reliant on single suppliers. They were highly reliant on supply chains where there were weaknesses and insufficient stores. They're also seeing some of their suppliers closing down, and that's suppliers that are in mid-contract, that they didn't foresee that those businesses were any particular risk of not being able to deliver on what they had committed to. So that's exposed another risk. Then they've also seen some of their critical supplies that they have had on order that have been stuck overseas, and significant delays in getting them into Australia. So all of those things have really been a huge focus area for procurement professionals and any kinds of buyers in corporate and government organisations. And the whole organisations have been looking to procurement departments to fix these issues in a very short space of time. So I guess the message is that they've been under a lot of pressure and really trying to fix some of those areas. But what it means looking forward is that they're going to be looking to address those risks in a longer term time frame. So they will be looking for more local manufacturing and supplying of products that they previously relied on shipping from overseas. They're going to be looking for multiple suppliers where they've previously relied and preferred to rely just on one supplier, because it reduces their the number of contracts they need to manage and the number of and I guess the effort it takes in getting those things on board. The other thing that they'll be looking to do is storing the things that they need for critical delivery on their work. They're going to be looking for those stocks to be stored locally. And when I say locally, I mean nationally, but also local to particular projects or particular organisations. They will also be looking to value their supplier relationships, and particularly the ones that are critical for their service delivery. So they'll be looking for much closer supplier relationships going forward. So I guess there's some of the flow-ons that we can expect to see. Some of these things really won't have taken hold yet, but we can expect to see some of those changes coming through. So buyers will be looking for transparency of the whole supply chain, and they'll be looking to do that through technology and data. So what they will be wanting to see is not only that their tier one suppliers are able to deliver, but also where the risks are in those suppliers and their suppliers' suppliers. So it flows right through the chain. So don't think that just because you don't deliver goods or services directly to, say, a Lendlease or a John Holland, you'll probably then end up needing to provide information to them via a supply chain. They'll be looking probably for increased requirements of reporting. So they'll be a little more nervous, a little more cautious about wanting to make sure that your business is healthy. They may be looking for business continuity plans more going forward. So they'll just be wanting to keep a closer eye on where the risks are in their supply chain. Greater responsiveness. We've seen some incredible responses in short time frames on a whole range of different things. They'll be looking for adaptable workforces, for people to cope with different restrictions and changing levels of restrictions. And that flows on to responsiveness of orders and inquiries, particularly if they know that stocks are available closer to home. And just that general closer relationships with their most critical suppliers will be key. They're also looking to add value. And I think this is really where social enterprises can shine in terms of having such a unique additional value in terms of the social value that you offer is a really important part. So I think that's a great way, particularly where it's a government-driven client, be it directly or via other providers. It's a really important part of your value proposition. So what we're looking at in terms of new ways of working, and this is really what our members are now starting to think about in terms of how's the world changed and what do they need to buy less of and more of going forward. And this will have a direct effect on what opportunities might come up for social enterprises. So there will be less focused on office space accommodation, most likely for a longer term. A reduced workforce density in the CBD. So CBD locations are not as sought after as maybe they once were. Staff health and safety, that can be completely redefined coming out of this crisis. So you're not so much looking for what's happening in an office, but you also have to think about much more significantly about mental health, about what's happening in people's homes if they are working remotely. So you can really expect to see quite a lot of emphasis on workforce health and safety being redefined quite significantly. There'll be less travel, events and conferences for quite a while, and it's anyone's guess really how long that will be. When I say travel, I mean, yes, absolutely interstate and international travel, but also travel to and from workplaces. So I think going forward into the easing of restrictions around the country, there's going to be less emphasis on getting to work at the same time as everybody else. There'll also be a bigger focus on technology with this increased remote working, reliability, skills and innovation and adaptability. So any areas of tech that can assist organisations to adapt in that space will be super relevant going forward. And definitely there will be a reduction in non-critical spend. So anything that might have been a perk or a nice to have is actually going to be analysed quite carefully going forward. you might see a shift in some of that spend. So it might be that where shared workplace perks or benefits were available, that might actually shift to now being more personal offers from employers. What does that mean in terms of opportunities, and particularly opportunities for social enterprise? And this really is, it depends totally on what area you work in and what you're good at, and really what your readiness and appetite is to adapt to newer areas. So manufacturing and related supply chains, so that includes logistics and deliveries, will be a significant focus and a significant opportunity. The federal government has quite a big program of really raising the bar in terms of local manufacturing. So if that's an area that you might think is relevant for you, certainly have a look at some of the federal government work in that space. Waste streams, so that's another area where we're seeing some changes. There's so much emphasis now on packaged goods, on disposable PPE, disposable things. Equipment and furniture might need to be upgraded to meet new standards. So there's a whole range of areas where new waste streams are going to be really creating significant issues. If you're a social enterprise that's in that waste space, it's a good idea to start thinking about what that might mean for you. The new requirements in offices and workplaces more generally, don't just think about the physical changes, which are, fairly obvious, like increased cleaning and sanitation services, but think about training, think about on technology, health services, and what's going to be different going forward. The ongoing working from home arrangements, that may be something that ends up being a permanent change to the way that we work. There might be some organisations that offer the ongoing option of people to work from home even some days a week. That means that could open up different opportunities for you as social enterprises. Also, don't forget those stimulus spending. And as Rebecca mentioned earlier, all of the state governments are announcing stimulus spending packages in relation to, a lot of them are focused on a whole range of construction areas, but there's also lots of significant maintenance spends in the health sector. There's a big area of spend. So think about a whole range of different areas that might be targets for you, and to tap into and keep an eye on the relevant stimulus spending and projects that are rolling out in your state. So just moving on to some more, I guess, some of the practical tips and takeaways that you might want to take from this. Your stakeholders are critical, and Rebecca mentioned this earlier too. Really keeping open lines of communication with your clients, but also your suppliers. So what the big corporates and government are experiencing in terms of shortage of critical supplies, you may have experienced that as well. But it's a good idea if you have critical suppliers that you need in order to be able to continue your business, keep talking to them, find out where they're at, and what challenges they might be facing as well. Talk regularly and openly with your significant clients, and they'll be looking to have more conversations with you because they want to make sure that you're still going to be around in 6 months' time when they next need you, or whatever that looks like. Not wanting to be too self-centric, but it's really important to keep us at Social Traders up to date with the changes that you're making in your business, any new areas that you're moving into or moving out of. It's great when we know that sort of information. We've been able to really directly connect a whole lot of social enterprises and put them forward for opportunities through this period. So we are regularly putting together lists of social enterprises that have innovated, that have added new services, that have changed the way they're doing things to make it more relevant in a COVID environment. We've been putting all of those social enterprises forward very proactively right through our buyer network. So all of those changes are going out to our 74 buyers. The more you keep us up to date with that sort of thing, the more we can help really put you in front of buyers for the right opportunities. More also on that too is, yes, talking to us and letting us know. Managing your profile in the Social Traders portal is super critical. As I said, those profiles get used by all of our members. And if you haven't been updating those profiles, in some cases, we've been doing that for you to reflect the changes that you've been making during COVID. So you might actually find that we've added a little sentence to reflect a new service where that is relevant. So I also wanted to, it's important to keep your Social Traders account and profile up to date, but it's actually going to be important to manage those profiles that you have with all of those different platforms and clients much more proactively going forward. What the corporates are going to be looking for is much better data on their suppliers. It's one of the key things that has been surfaced during the crisis, is that they just don't know and have current information about what your capabilities are and where you're operating, let alone what types of risks are in your business. So it's going to be really important going forward to get a really good handle on what profiles you have out in various marketplaces and when they are due to be updated, and proactively managing those updates. We're going to do a little poll at this point because this is actually going to be quite an important aspect that you will probably need to manage going forward. So there's a poll that is, if you have a look at the polls, thinking about different clients and other partners that have your business information, how ready are you to really keep those up to date, keep the information that they have about you up to date, and do that on a proactive basis? So there's a few different, so that's great. Looks like a lot of you are quite proactive in managing your information. So it looks like, yes, there's a few that are saying, oh, some of them were a bit iffy. So it's actually going to be quite important, because what you don't want to have is a situation where everyone's coming to you at the same time. So they might be looking for it quarterly or 6 monthly, saying you need to update your information on our database at the same time, and we need it done yesterday. So it's much more manageable for you as an organisation to actually have a program, knowing who's got what information and when it should be updated, and doing that quite proactively. So thanks for participating in that poll. That's looks like some of you might have a little bit of work to do in terms of getting a bit more proactive on that front. So on sales, so that sort of is more about the what you need to do in terms of managing your relationships with stakeholders. On sales, some of the things that you might like to have a look at is reviewing and adjusting what your current sales efforts are to suit the changes in the market that are happening right now. You might need to pivot a little bit, or to adjust where you're focusing your efforts based on what's happening out in your client sectors. Great idea to collaborate with other social enterprises when you're looking to respond to opportunities. We're seeing a little bit more of that happening now in our network, which is really fantastic. It totally opens up the range of opportunities that you're able to respond to. Communicate the social value that you add. So it's really important in your sales efforts that you are putting that front and centre. As I mentioned earlier, corporate and government organisations are increasingly looking to for value added goods and services in this environment, and your social value is a significant value. Also looking, if you are at a place in your organisation where you're ready to explore new opportunities or new directions or pivots, there are opportunities coming up in terms of buyers right now are looking for new services that they weren't buying before. When there's new suppliers, new services being sought, that's a great opportunity to really look at what you might be able to do in those spaces. I'm also going to ask Olivia to join us now. Olivia is going to be involved in a webinar that we're running next week, and she's going to talk to you a little bit more about what that might add to this picture that we've been painting today.
Thanks, Sam. Hi, everyone. For any enterprises that are interested in understanding some of those opportunities that Sam talked about in a little more detail, so some of the opportunities that will be rising out of the new ways of working, the safe work practices, etc. Social Traders is running a webinar next Friday, the 12th of June. It's part of a collaborative series that we're running with the Westpac Foundation and Social Impact Hub. It's at 1 o'clock. You can register by clicking on that button. And the webinar will focus on tips for reviewing your business strategy, but also ideas on how demand for different types of products and services might evolve as the economy reboots. So it should be a great webinar. Encourage anybody who has found today useful to come along, because we'll really be building on some of the ideas that were presented today. Thanks, Sam.
That's great. Thanks, Olivia. So you had a call to action pop up on your screen then, so that's really the link that you can use to register. So we might now go to some questions. So Beck, I'll get you to switch your mic back on too. So the three of us are really now available to answer some questions that you might have. Pablo has been asked a couple of questions, which is great. So are we aware of social enterprises making and supplying PPE and cleaning products? Yes, in a word. There are a few. So we're aware of, and we might not be completely comprehensive here, but thank you. Have a few products. Too Good also have some products.
Safety Pro is one.
Yep, Safety Pro is another one, absolutely.
There's probably a number that we can connect you with, Pablo, and so we'll alert Emma to this when we're out of the webinar, so that you two can have a chat and we can connect you.
Yep. The other thing that you can also do is in your portal, when you log into Social Traders, Pablo, you can actually search social enterprises and find out what's in the network when you log in. So you can actually do a search as well. Are there any other questions or things coming up in the chat?
Yeah, there's one from Peter Britton about New South Wales Government. And Chris, hopefully you can hear me a bit more now. Peter is asking about Social Traders and the New South Wales State Government and any conversations we've been having. And yes, we have been talking with New South Wales Government. We expect that they'll be talking about social procurement more broadly in the next year. We don't have a client relationship with them like we do with the Queensland Government and Victorian Government at the moment. And Sam or Olivia, not sure if you want to add any more to that.
Yeah, look, we have been having conversations with the New South Wales Government for a while and during the COVID crisis too. So we're certainly have been feeding information through to them about the Social Enterprise Network and the work that we do. And look, we are anticipating that we will be able to work with them in some way in the future. It's just unclear at the moment what the time frame on that looks like. Yeah.
And hopefully you're all seeing the chat, but a great point from Cheryl Kelly here, that it's always useful to highlight your previous work, if you have any, with any government departments or tier 1 organisations as part of your bio. You can do that in your profile in the portal, but also in on your websites. It's a really good point. Thanks, Cheryl.
It is, definitely. And there's actually a space where you can list references. So where you have worked for a particular client before, there's actually the specific fields that you can add that in. So it definitely gives everyone confidence if they know that you've worked with other large organisations before. Are there any other questions?
There is a new question from Julie. Are you able to tell us a little more about the successful collaborations you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so just trying to think of some of the examples. So we're certainly seeing some of the social enterprises coming together to try and establish partnerships. So there certainly have been some in the area of landscaping services and wholesale plants, so plant supply. That's been one that has come up a few times. What else have we seen? Beck and Olivia, is there some other examples that you can think of?
Look, in Victoria, we have seen Moving Feast, which is a big collaboration of food-related social enterprises in every part of the food supply chain. So if you look up Moving Feast, you can learn a bit more about what they've done and plan to do even beyond COVID. That's a really great example of a successful collaboration. And another thing I will mention, we're actually planning another webinar on social enterprise collaboration during a crisis. So it is planned for the 26th of June. We don't have registration details yet, but if you're interested in social enterprise collaboration as a topic, certainly look out for Social Traders emails and social media posts where we will communicate the details of that webinar shortly.
We have a question from Nikki here. Based on who we're talking to in the market, do we see social procurement becoming even more front and centre in procurement models over the next 12 months to support economy recovery? Yes, Nikki, I've had a number of conversations with my clients the last couple of weeks where they're saying, recognising that if they are spending money and if that money can deliver on local outcomes, on social outcomes, on environmental outcomes, as well as whatever the business is buying. They've been reporting that their teams are starting to recognise the value of social procurement in doing that. And also, quality and price does come into the mix. But again, a lot of the conversations I've had are around this value for money, and that social and sustainable procurement really can help businesses achieve those.
Yeah, I think it's also it's particularly relevant for government, and it's been really well recognised in the government departments, at a policy level as well as at a more practical level, is that, that there's definitely a recognition that it's more important now than ever to particularly support social enterprises through the crisis and into recovery, particularly because of the role that so many social enterprises play in supporting disadvantaged people in the labour market. So absolutely, it's definitely well recognised. So we've got another question here from Michael. After the introduction of the social procurement framework, have you seen progressing this progressing through departments and agencies. So yeah, we've seen the framework has been rolled out. So basically the first strategies were developed, so the first 10 departments, agencies and departments developed strategies, and then subsequently the rest of the agencies and departments have actually, everyone's now got their own social procurement strategies. And that applies to any state government department and agency. There's quite a few of them that have become buyer members and are looking at working with us more proactively to get quite a holistic approach to social procurement. It's a slow process in terms of rolling it out in the government. So there are something like 15,000 individual buyers across the Victorian state government. And the process really is about a bit of cultural change with every single one of those individuals. And it's not just here's a list, go and use it. It's not just one conversation or one workshop. It's actually a process of change before people will actually start to see what's available. They'll start to learn a bit more about social procurement, and then they'll start to realise what's possible in their own areas of responsibility. So it's not a fast process, but we're certainly seeing a lot more activity and take up, particularly in progress in the ones that we work with directly. So you'll be able to see a list of the ones that we work with directly as members on our website. And some of them are more ready than others, and more progressed than others. There's a lot of variation.
And they all will be reporting on social procurement outcomes in the next financial year. So with the introduction of the framework and writing their strategies and then implementing their strategies, the next stage that we'll see is more social procurement reporting, which means supply chain reporting, but also more work to social enterprises.
Yep. I can't see any other questions. Is there any other chat going on?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
A number of thanks everybody, but thank you for coming.
Thank you. All
Thanks
right.
for asking good questions.
Yeah, thank you. So we might wrap up, and hopefully Olivia will see you all at the webinar next week as well. Yeah.
We'd love to see you again.
Thanks. And I guess a final point as well is reach out to your social traders account manager if you are a certified social enterprise. We're all here to help you. So the more we know, the better we can help.
And obviously, if you're not certified yet, then get that progressed and we can help you a lot more. Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.